Welcome back to another episode of Plays Podcast. This is, of course, the quarterfinals episode. Alex is making weird faces at me. Of course, last week you guys were gifted with the talents of Sloth King and Smax. I heard a lot of people loved it. I'm glad you guys were able to have fun and take over the podcast for a day. But I'm back, and I'm raring to go with this episode. I can't wait to dive into last week's game, or 2 weeks ago's games, rather, as well as the up-and-coming games. I know we've got a lot of hype matchups that all of us are pretty excited about that we've talked about before. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. Let's go ahead and start off with the first quarterfinal match, or first round one match, rather, which, of course, was the Dawn Revenant game. How did you guys feel about Dawn Revenant? Let's be honest, it was really only a Dawn Revenant's game. Dawn Revenant versus Sicko Saiyans. What were your guys' initial reactions? First off, when you guys saw Dawn Revenant picked Sicko Saiyans, and then once the match played out, what were your thoughts then?
Well, I think Dawn was last pick. I don't think they had choice because they were 9-5, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. So they kind of got stuck with Sicko Saiyans, gotcha. But it ended up that Sicko Saiyans was stuck with Dawn Revenant. Yeah. Because I think that Dawn Revenant was the most consistent team of the 8 that we watched the last time the PRL was live. They had a really solid game plan coming into it, and they held their own against a very volatile Sicko Saiyans out of Life Division, and it was really clean from them.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. When I was watching the games back after I returned from my honeymoon, I have to agree. I think Sicko Saiyans simply just didn't compare to Dawn Revenant on the day. And Dawn Revenant definitely looked like the most comfortable team out of all the teams on the Season 10 preseason patch. I think that's for certain.
Yeah, and it was quite surprising with how well we saw them play against Akuma to get into this quarterfinal situation. I mean, round one situation. So I was impressed with Dawn Revenant's performance, especially coming on the side of how they adapted to the changes. We saw Orakra playing amazing, like always, and I think he took the adaptations well and played it to his strengths.
So, when we watched this series, obviously we have to hail Dawn Revenant for playing well, but was it just Dawn Revenant playing really, really well, or was it Sicko Saiyans playing extremely underwhelming Sicko Saiyans version of League of Legends just because of these Season 10 changes?
It definitely did feel like Sicko Saiyans wasn't all there. Of course, they didn't have their AD player. Gankbot Police was not there. They had Horse Girl instead. And for the first 2 games, you could really tell that was a really, really big deal for them. Now, Horse Girl stepped up in the next 2 on Sivir, but yeah, the first 2 games, it was really big bot difference. Not to flame their sub or anything, but you could really tell that they had not practiced with this person.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And Dawn Revenant really used it to their advantage too. You saw that he was Orakra was really focusing the bot lane, and it was very hard for them to even get anything done without the counter gank potential.
Yeah, you can tell just by looking at the score lines here that Double B just had a crazy series in every single game, really. Even in the one that they lost, you can see like on Caitlyn he's going 5-3 and 9, and then he had a Lucian game at the end where he had 11 kills, and then the 2 Xayah games in the middle, 13-1 and 7 on Xayah. That doesn't just happen. That's just that's a pretty big bot difference there, and It wasn't even just Horse Girl there. Kane was also having a pretty rough time lacking his normal AD player.
Yeah, there definitely seemed to be some synergetic issues between those two down there in the bot lane for the side of Sicko Saiyans. But overall, I just didn't feel like Sicko Saiyans was really playing to the level that we generally hold for them. And I'm not saying that as a way to discredit Dawn Revenant for their win, because Dawn Revenant did play well. I think Dawn Revenant really stepped up, and I thought we saw peak Dawn Revenant in this series. But it looked like peak Dawn Revenant versus like 75% Sicko Saiyans. You know, if you had told me like all the players had the flu that day, I'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, like with Dom Revenant, we did see them, and we're not trying to discredit them. They did an amazing job. Like they had the map control, they had it. Sicko Saiyans didn't look on their game, yes, but at the same time, the consistency out of Don Revenant is a great sign, and they didn't also take their lead and get cocky with it. They played their game to their plan and did a great job executing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think they had a really good idea of what their win conditions were with each draft that they picked. The game 3, I think that Arakra had a pretty off game where he was on Nunu. It definitely looked like he didn't really play that champion all that much. But they were 2 games up, match point. You can try stuff at that point. It didn't work, so he went to his comfort Nocturne after that. So, you just go.
I'm surprised we even saw the Nocturne not
honestly,
banned.
yeah.
So
I'm surprised too.
Because we talked about that weeks ago, that they need to ban this champion because Don Revenant knows how to play it well, and they execute it so well. Every time a gank was happening on the side of Sicko Saiyans, he was there to ult in and turn everything around. So I think it was an impressive showing, and it just shows that ban this champion. He is very good on it.
Yeah, granted, the Nocturne game was the longest of them, and it was kind of just. It felt like neither team was really like taking a leap of faith, really, and like trying to end it out at that point. It looked pretty shaky. It almost looked like we were like on the brink of a game 5 for a second there, but they collected themselves pretty well. Like it was just a bit of mid-game confusion there from Don Revenant, but other than that, very consistent series from them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Overall, this. There were other surprising results. Don't get me wrong, and I don't mean results in the sense of like who won, but I mean in the sense of how it went down. But we were kind of hailing Sicko Saiyans before I left about how they were really good against teams that they were supposed to beat, and they were really shaky against teams they were supposed to lose to. But then they came out. They had a really good week 7 showing. To put themselves in this position for playoffs, and all of us were very much along the lines of, wow, they took down Akuma. That wasn't a result that was supposed to happen. Does this mean Sicko Saiyans is legit? Does that mean we had Sicko Saiyans wrong? Sicko Saiyans is 100% here to play. They can take down top tier teams. But then when we saw them play, so I actually had them pegged over Don Revenant despite coming in as the lower seed. I said, you know what, they came from a tougher division. This, and this. Like I had all these reasons that I was like, if Sicko Saiyans won, this isn't a surprising result. But the way that Don Revenant won was surprising. Not that they won, but just in the way they won. I was expecting this to go to 5 games. Like when I saw this on paper, I was like, this is going to be a good 5-game series, back and forth. I think it's going to come down to who has blue side the last game. And instead, it was almost clinical from the side of Don Revenant compared to some of the other games that we saw.
Yeah, coming into it, we definitely expected this to be the closest series of all of them. But in actuality, it seemed like it may have been the furthest apart. Like almost. We can touch on the other 3 later, but it feels bad because I think it may have been the series we were expecting if Gankbot Police was in, but he wasn't, and Don Revenant just mopped the floor with them. So a lot of credit to them for playing exactly like they have been, get all their wins that they've been getting up until this point. So yeah,
absolutely. All right, well, I mean, real quick before we leave away from this series, do we want to give a series MVP for this game? I'm sure you both have very different opinions on who you think should be the series MVP, or I could be completely wrong and you could both agree with me and think it's Arakra.
In normal circumstances, Arakra is the MVP of this team, and he is the guy that makes it happen. There are 2 reasons why I don't think that's the case for the series. The first one is game 3. He did not look that great on the Nunu, and I think that he's a pretty large reason why they didn't win that game. He's a pretty large reason why they won the other 3, but that game it was mostly on his shoulders. And the other reason that I am not going to give it to him is because how much the bot lane stepped up in absence of Gank Bot Police, and I think that my MVP for this one is actually Double B. He just played a really, really solid series the whole way around. He got the better end of every lane that he was in on 3 different champions. It looked like a really convincing series from him, and he's definitely a top contender for me from the bot lane now.
Gotcha. Alex, what about you?
My thoughts on MVP would definitely be Orakra for the fact that, yes, he did have that bad game, but they also seemed to be experimenting. So I don't want to take too much away from something they were just trying out. But he's also picked up all the bans so that his team literally gets 3 bans on Orakra like every time.
Yeah.
So he's absorbing bans. He's still playing way over expectation. Every game we see him, he's always finding a way to surprise us. And anything you put him on, he excels at. So I think it's hard for teams to deal with him. In the series, I think his leadership is what's getting this team so far. We've seen a lot of changes with him coming in, so I think he would definitely be my MVP for these games.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
like I was saying, he's my MVP for this team as a whole, but I think that there was one person, maybe 2, that were outshining him a little bit in this one in particular.
You just gotta turn away from the Nunu game, man. You just gotta look away.
You gotta,
I can't.
You gotta be like the NALCS, man. Like, you don't pay attention to those losses. Those losses don't matter. We only care about the high points. All right, so I mean, I think that about covers our thoughts on this series as a whole. I mean, there really wasn't much to talk about other than the consistency and the dominance in which Dawn Revenant displayed. So, I mean, any closing thoughts before we move on to the next one?
Wait, where's your MVP?
I said what it was. I said it was Rockro.
Yeah, he said it, Rockro.
Yeah, but you didn't give anything on that. All right, that's fine. We'll move on.
I didn't think I needed to. I mean, you both hit it pretty much on the head for me. Rockro is the star of this team. And despite that Nunu game, though, I think the fact that, he is consistently the controlling force and the driving force of Dawn Revenant almost every game, I think speaks volume. And I can't give MVP to anyone else on that team, no matter how bad his 3rd game was, just because of the fact that he is that driving force for this team. I think if he's having a good game, I think you're going to see Dawn Revenant have wins. And I think that's the definition of an MVP.
That's fair.
All right, so
no argument for me.
Up next, we have. I mean, there was an argument. You picked the AD carry.
I think I'm right. I think there's value in what you're saying.
Get a little bit of Smax talking.
I'm not going to say you're wrong because I think that it's close. I think I'm right, though.
Fair enough. We agree to disagree. All right, so up next, do you guys have any closing thoughts on the series before we go next, or?
Well, like I said, I think this team was the most consistent of any team coming into to like the 8 teams that we saw on stream. This is the most consistent, and I value that a lot moving forward. Because the best of 5 format, you really do need that, and it looks like they did a really good job. So I have a lot of respect for this team.
Gotcha.
I have high expectations for them coming in, so I'm excited to see what they pull out next and what they do to adapt even further.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the next game then. We're, of course, speaking about Asian Invasion versus Alarion Gaming Black. Again, I want your thoughts about when you saw this matchup on paper, and I want your thoughts now that the match has been played out.
So, I did say that I think Asian Invasion is going to 3-1 this. I think that they are the better team, and I think that was proven. I did not expect Alarion Gaming Black to flop as hard as they did. They really did not meet my expectations at all. The 2 players that I think are really good, or were really good during the regular season on this team, are Atlas and Hook the ADC. And they did not show up at all in the same way that they were doing in the regular season. They had a really bad series. the whole way through, basically. And it did not look like the same two players, and I was really sad to see that, because I think that's how they got a lot of their wins, was off of the back of these two players. Specifically, Atlas with his jungle aggression, you didn't really see that at all. And it looked like the whole Ban Olaf situation really hit him really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he very much did look like a shadow of himself from the regular season.
Yeah.
I was expecting a lot more aggressive plays. I was expecting him to continue to facilitate the team in the way that he had been all season long. And, I mean, yeah, I 100% agree. It just didn't look like he was... It didn't look like the jungler that we had seen for Alarion Gaming Black. I would have guessed that they had put a sub in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it comes down to a lot about Atlas, because Hook the ADC we still saw some life in. He did still try and be the playmaker that he is.
Yeah.
But when it came
he did some good stuff.
When it came to Atlas, they didn't have a jungler for most of their games.
Mm-hmm.
He was behind, not only behind, but he was getting invaded constantly. And anytime there was a play on the map, it was being either traded or counter ganked. And
yeah,
he himself was being hunted in his own jungle.
Yeah.
It was a serious problem, and I definitely think the Olaf tilt hit him, because he just couldn't get around that ban coming out. So
yeah. It was really, really big. Like,
I don't know if they didn't practice enough on other junglers. They thought that no, they're not gonna respect ban it, but it definitely came out.
Asian Invasion did their research on this jungler for sure. Like, Doubtful looked far superior in this series, in all 4 games, really. Like, the first game, there was some for fun shenanigans during the first one from Doubtful, but I think that was just how confident he was, and he didn't lose his confidence either. He kept it the whole series, so a lot of credit to him.
I will say, which was very surprising for me, because Doubtful wasn't one of those players where I was like, man, this is like the key star player of Asian Invasion. We've kind of always hailed Klexo as that star player for Asian Invasion. And while he did have a good showing, don't get me wrong, I think far and away, Doubtful was the most overperforming player for Asian Invasion on the day.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Now, when I first look at this matchup, Asian Invasion, ALG, I had a lot of hopes for ALG, just due to the fact that they showed an impressive showing near the end of their split, and then it seemed like their core team really was coming together. So I actually had this really close. I had it like 3-2, I believe, for Asian Invasion versus Alarion Gaming, and kind of broke my expectations. Asian Invasion.
Okay.
But I still had a very close showing, and we didn't really get to see that. I think their game that they won was a fluke in the end, because just even
there was a little bit of
either way, it still didn't show like that they were playing well.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, like I was saying, I think the one game that Alarion won was just Asian Invasion being too overconfident in the first game, and then they cleaned it up, and they still kept their confidence, but they cleaned it up a bit more in the following
because
three.
It was a dominating game until they turned it around. So
yeah, it was very. I don't know. It looked like you're saying. It looked like Atlas was a shadow of himself, and while Hook was trying to make up for it, he couldn't do 2 men's work on 1 champion. So it was a really like.
I was hoping to see Atlas just go in there and rip the jungle apart too. So,
but Doubtful just was really good, and it wasn't even just Doubtful. The top lane was really one-sided in every single game. Like June Extorted, he changed his name. Same guy. He played these ranged champions really well. Like and Mordekaiser's not ranged, but for the most part, he was just playing ranged champions the whole time. And the top lane, like Taylor, just couldn't do anything the whole time. He was just getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and June was just pretty hard crushing up in the top side.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see any Zillion though. That was good.
They hovered it every game.
So I mean, I'll be honest. I had Asian Invasion over ALG, but I had it 3-1 Asian Invasion. So I'm happy that I got my prediction right. But yeah, I mean, based on the way this one was going, I thought it should have been a 3-0 Asian Invasion.
Yeah,
I
should have been.
I actually had higher expectations for ALG. If you had put them against, say, Famous, or if you put them against, I'm trying to think of the other teams that lost from this last week.
You got Sicko, you got
Yeah,
Famous,
I mean,
Illyrian, and Essentia.
Yeah, I mean, you put them against Essentia, I probably would have taken ALG. But after watching this weekend, I think ALG was the worst performing team that made it into playoffs. They just, none of their players.
In the tournament?
No, that made it into playoffs.
Oh, okay. Like before the tournament,
Yeah.
they're the worst performing? I gotcha.
No. So, like, going into playoffs, I thought that they were a contender for a quarterfinal spot.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
After this week.
But after
Now.
this
But
last week,
gotcha.
after this last week, I think they were the worst performing team that made it into playoffs.
I think that this is the biggest underperformance for me.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's along the same lines. I don't think that I could say that they were the worst performing team of the 8 that we've seen, but they were definitely the biggest underperformance.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I believe they were only 2 second seeds lost, and they were one of them.
Yeah, it was half and half.
Yeah. So, I think in terms
wait.
of, like, you expect more from a second seed.
Wait, no, it was 3 because Dawn is a second seed, so they were the only upset actually.
Oh yeah, you're right. So
Yeah.
then, I mean, that reinforces my point. Then, like, this,
Yeah.
as a second seed team, I expected a much better performance from them, and they definitely underwhelmed. Now, again, I'm not trying to take away from Asian Invasion's victory. Asian Invasion played phenomenal.
Yeah.
A lot of people I've seen are buying into the Asian Invasion hype, and it's well deserved. I think Asian Invasion has looked pretty solid coming down the home stretch, going into playoffs, and they looked good again here today.
Yeah. Especially for a team that barely scraped in at the
we
last
were really
second.
worried about them. Like weeks ago, we were like, "Oh, are they
Yep.
even gonna make it?" And
Yep.
they performed on the day, and they deserve to be here, and they showed that they deserve to be here, and they showed
Yep.
that they're a threat coming in to quarters.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll tackle that matchup later on in the podcast. Of course, I know we have very different views on it from what I can surmise. But that being said, I mean, again, MVPs. For me, it's got to be Doubtful. I think June is a good second choice, but I think the jungler really dictated the pace of this game. I thought Doubtful looked phenomenal, and we were expecting it to be the other way around. If Alarian Gaming had won, we would have said, man, Atlas showed up. Atlas was a monster. But again, Atlas looked like a shadow of his former self, and Doubtful really was able to take advantage of that and really run his course on the game.
It's true. Yeah, I agree. I think Doubtful is clearing away the best or the MVP candidate here. I will say that every member of Asian Invasion outperformed their counterpart.
Yep.
So it's hard to pick from that because they all did so well.
Well, he made someone not be able to play the game at all.
Yeah, Doubtful definitely gets the MVP for sure.
Yep.
I mean, he had to take the spotlight from Klexo this week, and here it is.
Are there any closing thoughts we want to give before we go ahead and jump on to the next one then?
Well, I think I've covered everything.
Yeah, this from the standings, it's an upset, but I don't think that it was quite an upset. But I mentioned that coming in because I did think that Asian Division would win it, but I think that this really shows just how exposed Body Division is getting right here.
Yeah.
When their second seed is having that happen to them, and then their third seed lost too, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to that. I mean, when we were making our power rankings though of the divisions in order, we had Body Division at the bottom. And I know personally I got a lot of flack for that, saying, how can you rate Body Division so low? You don't really have insight because we haven't seen all these other divisions rather, match up against Body Division. And, this was why we had body division pinned so low, was because we could tell just by the eyeball test, like, there were teams competing in the other divisions that we were confident could take down these other two teams, and we really did feel it was SPK Embers kind of sitting alone at the top in body division. But now that we've seen what we predicted to come to fruition, you know, obviously we'll tackle this a little bit more later, but, you know, we have to now start voicing concern for the side of SPK Embers. You know, is this weak division really going to end up biting them in the butt? Are they going to be coming in underprepared? That kind of stuff. And again, I don't want to take away from the teams that made it into playoffs, but it genuinely did feel like the body division teams were kind of outmatched this week.
Well, and again, that's why we kind of put our team power rankings kind of farther down for SPK, because we were still skeptical of what they're able to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, we had like 6th overall between our rankings, and it was just because it was a giant question mark for us. But all right, I mean, we'll dive more into SPK Embers later on in the episode. So let's go ahead and jump on to the next one. It was, of course, Zephyr versus Famous. This was the only 3-0 of the week. Do we feel like it should have been a 3-0 though? I mean,
I personally did.
Yeah, I mean, so Zephyr Esports, to me, when we were talking about Zephyr Esports earlier in the season, it was, this is the dominant team. This team is one of the untouchables. They look like monsters. They're competing with SPK Embers for that sole first seed spot, because SPK Embers and them were the only 2 undefeated teams going into the last week. You know, a lot of hype was built around Zephyr Esports. You know, a lot of us had them pinned top 1, top 2, top 3, somewhere in that range. They didn't look like a top 3 team this week.
No,
they looked like a second seed team.
Well, also, even coming before round 1 into playoffs, they just had a really rough showing right before, and you know, which lost them their bye to Recon 5.
Yep.
And you know, and then we come into this game, which they did look tremendously better in this game than they did before playoffs.
True.
So we can give them that. They definitely played at another level. But what we expected out of this match, the reason I had 3-1 for Famous was because it looked like they had some weaknesses that they had to clean up. Like, they had a new bot lane, completely new, you know, not much time to play. I know they practice their hearts out, but sometimes it's in the game where you have to have that real synergy. And then top lane, Weedrum was looking a little rough before playoffs, so we kind of question marked, is this kind of where you can play off and make a weakness? And that's why I predicted 3-1 for Zephyr, because I thought Famous could exploit a weakness or see something. But I think it's not beyond expectation of what happened. I think Famous has not put on the best performance throughout the split.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we didn't see them practice enough. We didn't see them make the right adjustments, and it showed in these games, and they were very dominant.
Yeah. I agree that both of these teams did not look clean at all in this series, but to answer your question of whether or not this should have been a 3-0, I think the answer is yes. I think that this is the reason why I couldn't say that Illyrian Gaming Black was the worst performing team in the playoffs. Famous did not show up in this series at all.
I don't think Zephyr did either.
Oh, no, they definitely did not. But Famous was another few levels underneath that. I don't know what they were doing with their roster. It clearly was made in a rush, but they did not have their usual people, or it was a complete mystery as to who was even playing coming in. And Project Ripper is the only one that we knew for certain who was going to play.
Mm-hmm.
And you could definitely tell. This looked like a solo queue team had strolled into a tournament setting. And they had no communication, they had no synergy. They had clearly not played with each other at all. And it really, really showed with the calls that were made. And then, of course, the the banter explosion that happens after the series as well. Oof, that was rough.
I mean,
hey, what happens in banner stays in banner.
For me,
oh yeah, I'm not gonna bring it in here.
For me, it literally looked like a battle of who sucked less on the day. And like, I hate to be that way. Like, no, like I hate to be that way.
You're
Like,
right.
I want to be like, I'm so happy Zephyr won 3-0. They look good. They look clean. It was a clinic. It wasn't. It literally, like, you know, people used to joke when they watched League of Legends, like, oh, it looks like a pitching battle. Who can throw harder? That's literally what I watched. Like, it was literally like.
But we did see the ball in Zephyr's court.
Yeah.
No.
It never left.
It never left, but like it still like.
We
you know,
just didn't
we
see
talked
the Zephyr dominance that we're used to.
Yeah,
you know?
but I mean, you look at Atlas. Let's go back to Atlas from the game before Essentia or Alarion versus Asian Invasion. We were talking about how Atlas looked like a shadow of his former self. Bro, Zephyr didn't even look like a shadow of their former selves. They look like a different team.
Well, to be fair, this is a different team.
This is slightly a different team.
But slightly different.
New bot lane.
But to me, when you build a team, regardless of the pieces that you pull in, you should be conforming people to the way your team plays the game, because there needs to be some level of like, this is our team's identity. This looked like a team that doesn't have an identity. This looked like a team that they were like, okay, we're bringing in a new bot lane. What does our bot lane want to do? It didn't look like, hey, bot lane, you guys are being brought down to the Zephyr organization. We expect you to play the Zephyr way, which is what I expected when Zephyr picked these people up. And it did not look that way. And that, to me, is the biggest telltale sign. Because, I like, for example, I think Nutty said something about, like, he's going on vacation this week or something like that.
Wait, hold on. Alex, what happened to your webcam?
It's flickering. It's Discord.
It's Discord. I have no idea. My webcam's still up.
But I thought I heard through I heard through the grapevines. I think Nutty said he's going on vacation or something like that.
How dare you.
I mean, you're going to be bringing in another new guy. Like, are you going to change the way you play again because of that? No. You need to be telling these people that you're bringing onto your roster, you're going to play this way because this is the organization you're playing for, and we have standards. It's the exact reason that TSM has failed over and over and over again.
He's
with
back.
junglers.
He's back, baby.
So I'm just saying, my point is I think that it was really shocking to me the way Zephyr looked because of their new bot lane. And again, they looked like a completely different team. They did not look like the Zephyr that I thought they were. And I'm going to be honest, I can't give an MVP for the series. I can't.
Agree that it's not the same Zephyr, and they didn't play like they used to. But I don't think that is super detrimental, like you're making it out to be. At least not as much. I think that the two players that they brought in did play well. They didn't play like the Zephyr that we've seen during the regular season that went 12-0, but they also didn't do what they did during the regular season as a bot lane and go 0-2.
I actually think
so
they made a lot of great plays in the
game. It was pretty.
Don't get me wrong, they played well, but I'm like, okay, if you took this Zephyr and you put it up against the Zephyr that went 12-0, who wins?
The Zephyr that went 12-0.
The Zephyr that went 12-0.
Exactly. So now let's take that same premise of the question. You take this Zephyr that just played, put them against any other team that won their series.
So they would not beat Asian Invasion. They would not beat.
They wouldn't beat Dawn Revenant. They wouldn't beat Asian Invasion. The only one you can make
beat Akuma
maybe.
Yeah, the only one you can make a case for is they might have beaten Akuma if they had matched up. But being honest, like, I don't think they would have won that either. No. I'm very passionate when I think that teams severely underperform, and Zephyr severely underperformed for me.
In my opinion, I don't think it was like that bad that we're making it. I think that the bot lane
I think this is a death sentence. I think this is a nail in the coffin.
We know what you think. All right. I think the bot lane was shaky. I think top lane had good control, but we didn't see the same performance from the bot side that we're used to, and that's why it looked so shaky, because they played so much off of their bot and let Weedrum just control the top lane, and that's where we saw a lot of hit and miss off of this team. but I am more confident for them than I was before playoffs.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they took their bot lane and were doing a lot better. And
Yeah.
I'm not completely 100% yet, but I am, feeling better about what I saw in these games versus what I saw before playoffs.
I think that they definitely have warped their playstyle than what it was, but if they can figure that out and have it be more consistent than we saw in that series, then it might pay off for them, because they are stuck with these two players now. The bot lane that they used to have can no longer play. Because the bot lane it wasn't their choice, right? They wanted to keep Vark and Marascudo because they won all those games. Yeah. So yeah, they don't have those players anymore. They have to have these new ones, and if they can get wins playing around that playstyle, then they should, honestly. Like the top lane, the top side rather. So Wiederum, Dupster, and Akata, they did not look like the same players. They didn't play the same way that they usually do, but their bot lane did look pretty good. They did pretty all right in lane, and the team fighting and the picks were definitely there from Consumed and Nutty. I think that they overperformed enough to where the underperformance of the top side is not the death sentence that you think it is, in my opinion.
I just think that when I think of Zephyr, I think of the team that went 12-0, and this is a team that, again, it looks like a completely different team, and I don't believe that two players should completely change the foundation of an entire team. I mean, that's my opinion, though. I mean, again, I've heard through the grapevine that Nutty's not playing this week. I don't know the accuracy of that statement. I could be completely wrong. That's not a stake I'm willing to die on. But even if Nutty is there as the starter, I don't think that this team looks. I would say this team is playing 75% of the level that the old Zephyr was playing at. I'd probably go lower. I'd probably say closer to 60% of the way that Zephyr was playing before.
Because they have 60% of the same players.
No. But those players. But I'm saying those players also underperformed.
Well, we're just gonna.
The whole team underperformed.
We're really gonna have to just watch them and see what they can do to adapt. And since they had more time now, we had this week off. It felt like forever for me, not doing something for this week. But
agreed.
So they have this time now to really shape out what they want to do. Maybe we'll see that.
Yeah. I mean, again, let's get back on track, though. I took us down a rabbit hole. I apologize.
It's okay. We're used to it.
But Zephyr versus Famous, we expected. What the fuck?
Yeah.
We expected. We expected Famous to play better than this. We expected Zephyr to play better than this. It was just kind of a disappointment all over. But at the end of the day, Zephyr did win the game. So, yeah. I mean, what are our thoughts on this, though, moving forward? Is this a team that we can put ourselves behind and say we have confidence? Or is this a team that, we think it completely depends on who they're playing? What's the story with this team?
I think that this team making it this far and 3-0ing their first round opponent is pretty good. Oh, you're fixed, by the way.
Yay.
It's pretty good that they've done this. So I think they can be. If it were me, I was a staff member of this team, I would be pretty proud that our new bot lane showed up in that series and they made the 3-0 happen after they have only played 2 games together. So in that regard, that's optimistic for them. Are they going to beat Team Fish Taco?
We'll get into that.
No.
Spoilers, Smax does not think so.
But yeah, I think this is a vote of confidence if this is the roster that they're bringing to another split. I think that if they have a lot more time together and they come to, say, the winter split of PRL, I wouldn't be too surprised if this team was top up top of the table and whatever they're in, because I think that they are improving at a pretty good rate. Like Alex was saying, the regular season games that they played and this series, Nutty and Consumed look way better. It's like not even close how much better they looked. Obviously, it's because they were winning instead of losing, but there's a bit of that anyway. They looked like they had been practicing a lot, and I wouldn't be too surprised. Like, I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be the most surprised if Zephyr took like a game off of TFT, and in that regard, I wouldn't be the most surprised. Like, I wouldn't die of a stroke if they won the series. I don't think they're going to, but I wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah. Sorry, we're getting messages from people about things, and it's just making us laugh. We apologize. So, unfortunately, though, we do have to give a series MVP for this game.
Jesus, Jacob. Would you like to mail the president too?
Again, I was not a fan of this series. I am not a fan of massive underperformances, and this felt like a massive underperformance from both sides. All the criticism I have given Zephyr, I am willing to 100% give to Famous as well. I think Famous looked like a shadow of their former selves. I think everyone expected this series to be a 3-0, but nobody expected it in the terrible fashion in which it occurred. But that being said, again, we do have to give an MVP for this one. I'll let you guys. I will not be the first one to go this time. I will take your guys' thoughts and I will put them under consideration for mine. Smax, I will let you go first.
I'm gonna take Consumed. I think he, like you're saying, they definitely played around their bot lane more than they usually would, and I think he ran with it pretty well. I think he did his job in all three of the games, and while Game 2 was definitely the Wiederum show, the other two games weren't entirely on his shoulders, and I think when he faltered a little bit, Consumed stepped up in a pretty big way. So I'm going to take Consumed.
Gotcha.
I'm going to take his partner, Nutty. I think Nutty stepped up this week. I think role swapping, he showed I think he showed a great performance. From what our expectations were, I think he really hit it with expectations. He made plays when necessary. No, he was not having a perfect game by any means, but this is something impressive, really, and I'm really surprised, and I'm really hoping that he steps up and shows even more of that playmaking style come into quarters.
Gotcha. Well, I kind of have a question for Smax. You said Wiederum essentially carried Game 2 all by himself, and then you said in Game 1 and 3 when he wasn't capable of carrying it by himself, Consumed stepped up. So why are you picking Consumed over Wiederum if you really viewed that Wiederum played that well?
I think that Wiederum had a bit of
a lot of faults
session in Game 3.
He had a lot of faults.
He definitely was running it down in Game 3.
I was just curious because you seemed like you seemed like you were praising Wiederum more than you were like praising Consumed with that statement. So I was just trying to understand like what your thoughts were.
To simplify it, Consumed was the most consistent member of the team, and while he may not have been the main carry of the individual games, he was at least the second carry in all three.
He was serviceable.
Yeah, whereas Wiederum was definitely first in Game 2. He was definitely fifth in Game 3.
It was consistency at the end of the day.
Yeah, he was really consistent, which is really good for an AD player.
I simplified, you're simplified.
Yeah.
So I was pretty torn between the two members of the bot lane for Zephyr. I think the top three definitely underperformed massively, and I think it's courtesy of the fact that they do have that new bot lane that they're trying to get that synergy with. But if I had to give it, I'd probably give it to Consumed as well. Not to discredit Nutty, I think Nutty played well. As well as I can say that they played after I tore them apart for their performances. But like I said, I think overall, I think that Consumed was fairly fairly consistent compared to the rest of the players' performances.
Yeah.
So.
Agreed.
All right.
Sounds good. Now we get to the reverse sweep.
All right. Up next, as my friend my friend Smax rather referred to, the reverse sweep. Of course, we're talking about Essentia Storm versus Akuma Blades. Probably the only game where you could say neither team really deserved a win. Both teams look relatively bad. Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and jump into it. Yeah. It's almost like I want to say, how about them Cowboys? But it's almost, I really want to be like, how about that Akuma Blades?
Essentia was not ready to go to 5 games. I'll tell you that much.
They were ready for a best of 3. They were not ready for a best of 5.
Yeah. With every single game, they progressively got worse and worse and worse until Game 5 when they drafted Cassiopeia Lulu bot lane. So that's the pits that they ended up in.
Pretty sure Cloud9 tried that at Worlds and it didn't work.
Cassiopeia Lulu, man. I don't know what they were thinking. They had a Yasuo on the team. Just put the Yasuo bot lane.
Yep. And we all thought it was going to be that way, too. We thought the Cass and the Yas were going to swap.
I don't know what they were thinking.
And then we're like, oh, I guess the Cass just wants to share all her XP the whole game.
Oh, my God.
So,
and on top of that, you can't... the Lulu gives Cassiopeia attack speed. What's she going to do with that?
Yeah.
Nothing.
So
extra auto a day keeps the doctor.
So sad. It's so sad.
Let's start off with the. So in all seriousness, I know I flamed these two teams for this really underwhelming game or series rather. But I will say, with Zephyr, I thought maybe it was the roster. With other teams, I thought maybe it was the patch. I mean, Akuma Blades and Essentia Storm, when we spoke to them in regards to the patch, they both seemed relatively confident going into this. And again, I don't know what it was. I don't know if they both just drank the wrong Kool-Aid that day. I don't know what was going on, but neither team looked like they were really ready for that series.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head for Essentia Storm. They looked like they were not prepared to go to 5 games. They looked like they were ready for a best of 3 and not a single game more.
Well, I think.
Meanwhile,
I think
Akuma Blades. Go ahead.
I think the most interesting thing was that we looked at Akuma Blades and we're like, this team is gonna go places. We are super excited to see what they're capable of and how they're gonna contend in playoffs. And it's kind of like an eye opener for us that, what happened with this team, what's going on, because they didn't even look good winning.
Yeah.
And it's worrisome just for the fact that Essentia Storm looked worse and worse every game they played.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because Akuma was, beating them. They were beating themselves. Essentia Storm lost to their own game. And inconsistency led to a reverse sweep, and it's why they don't sit here today.
Yeah.
And it's just disappointing because, we thought they would understand the patch better than any team. They had so much prep ready, and it just seems like they lost focus halfway through the series because they looked really strong their first 2 games. They understood a lot of what they need to do to win and play to those win conditions, and then it just faltered.
It looked like they fired their coach after game 2. It's like, all right, guys, we got the 2 wins. All right, bye, tea time. Bye. Like, that's literally how it looked, though.
Tea time went to sleep in Europe.
But that's how it looked, though. It did not look like the same team any game. I mean, I agree. Every game, it looked like they got progressively worse.
Yeah, and then I don't know what the whole deal was with they won game 1 and then they subbed Jweb out.
Yeah.
That was the first red flag for me.
Yeah.
When they did that, I was like, what are they doing? The only way that I could make sense of it was if they had the 2 junglers there and they wanted experience on both so they could pull out a double jungle. And because there was a big Reddit post about it on the day, new jungle, you can do double jungle and just run marksman mid lane like Tristana, and it works. They didn't do it. I don't know
And
what
they
was
even
going
had
on.
two junglers.
They had two of them, yeah, and they both won a game. And then they get to game 3, and they've just put Jweb in. It's same as usual. And Akuma Blades finally snapped. They're like, all right, well, we clearly don't know what's going on in the meta. We're just going to pick Comfort. They pick Comfort. They win that game. And then they do the same thing 2 more games. So really, neither team, I think, came in with a good understanding of what's good on this patch at all.
I agree with that.
Yep.
I think both teams were severely underprepared for this patch. I think both teams were not ready for a best-of-5 series. Yeah, I mean, I said it when I first started this segment for this match, rather. Neither of these teams deserved to win that day. And I stand by that. Because on one hand, you have a team that wasn't prepared for a best-of-5 series. They were prepared for a best-of-3 at best. And were making questionable roster swaps and stuff like that. And then on the other hand, you have a team that had no idea what they were doing and literally had to say, all right, you know what, let's just hope our old picks are good enough. And
then they were, because they
fortunately
outlasted
they were,
Essentia in the mentality of the best of 5. Like, if Essentia played game 1 3 times in that series,
Essentia won.
They would be the best team in this tournament right now, I think. That the first game was really good. I think they would be a front runner to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean,
But
wasn't it nigh a perfect
game? They
game?
kept getting worse. It wasn't a perfect game.
No, I said it was nigh a perfect game, meaning it was like almost a perfect game. Like
it was.
It was really close.
Against the Akuma Blades.
Yeah.
Who, coming into the tournament, looked like top of the world. Like, of course, they lost to Sicko, but
they were first or second seed, yeah.
Yeah. And, yeah, if Essentia won the first game the same way that they did, and they played that game 2 more times, they would be the favorites to win the whole thing. But they just couldn't do it.
Heard.
And that's so sad for me, because they looked so good. And, like, based on the first game, I might be ready to say that this is the best team from Body Division. Because it's been a while since we've seen SPK play. They are very formulaic. I don't know how they're going to adapt to the patch, if at all. Essentia came in with a pretty dominating first game, and I think that would be fair to say. If Essentia did that 3 times, then I think they'd be better than SPK, but they didn't.
No, I don't know about it better than SPK, but I definitely agree they were better than Alarion Gaming.
Yeah.
But as
even without that, they were better than Alarion.
On the week, yeah, I agree with that. Throughout the season, though, I think Alarion Gaming proved that they were the better team. But I think that that week of playoffs, I agree. I think Essentia Storm was the best performing of the Body Division teams. It's hard for me because, I mean, I even stated for the last series about how much I hate underperformances, and this really felt like an underperformance for Akuma Blades. I don't feel like Akuma Blades deserved this win. They got it, though, and that's what matters. They've had another week to adapt to the patch. Hopefully that was good enough for them, because I'd hate to see another performance like this again.
Yeah, it's very troublesome from that. Then they get directly into Recon 5. I don't know.
And my thing too is we talked about it too. Like, we were wondering how teams were going to adapt to, the new meta, but at the same time we said we hope that we don't see teams over prepare for meta, and then use things they're not comfortable on or haven't practiced enough, and then it just lead to a loss anyway. You might as well just run what you're comfortable with and see how it goes.
That's literally what it looked like.
I would have liked to see that in the earlier games instead of whipping it out when you're about to lose. So they have some practice to do. They have some work to do. Hopefully they got it.
Yeah.
And now they're going to be showing up this week.
My question is these teams have had time. What do we think is affecting these teams more? And this isn't just for this series. This is for all the series that we've talked about. What do we think is affecting the series more? Roster changes? The patch itself? The switch to best of 5? or is it all three? Which is it? Because there's something in the water, man. I'm telling you, all these teams they look like shadows.
I think when you talk to which team, it's one or the other. You know, I think all of it affects all of them. But like you look at Essential Storm, who had that patch preparation in the first couple games, and then all of a sudden they weren't ready to get the rest of the wins.
Yeah.
So they obviously weren't prepared for a best of 5. But then when you look at like Famous, it kind of looked like it was all three. They weren't ready for draft. They weren't ready for meta.
The roster most of all.
So depending on the team, I think that was more of what was going on. I think Akuma just couldn't do well in the new meta. They didn't practice enough, or just didn't have a good understanding.
Yeah, they didn't know what to do on 923 at all.
All right. Well, again, it is our due diligence to give an MVP for the series. Who's your series MVP? Alex, I'll start with you this time.
I'm going to give it to Fluke. I still think he performed well for what he was playing. I still think he made a lot of plays that, even though ended up being turned on, he still tried to set up the best for his team and put up the best performance he could.
I agree with that.
Now, if it was the LCS way, where in the best of 5 series you only consider the ones that they won, it would not be close. It would be Legoat James, because he's a big reason why they lost games 1 and 2, and he's the biggest reason why they won games 3 and 4.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
That
it would go to
pick.
It would absolutely go to Legoat James if I keep the other two out of my mind, the ones that he cost his team the game.
I agree with that. I agree with both points. I think the Fluke was a really good performer from across all the games.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think that we stated earlier in the show that we were going to be doing kind of the more LCS style, and while I think Fluke was definitely a reason they got their wins as well, I agree. I think Legoat James was the best performing player in games 3 and 4.
I think along the same lines where I didn't want to give the MVP of Dawn Revenant to Arakra because of his loss, I would lean more toward Fluke, I think. But if we're keeping,
I take the bad
losses
games
out
and the good games. So
yeah, I think
it's just fair to do it that way.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying what the
so.
LCS does.
Right. Yeah. If it's LCS, then it's definitely Legoat James. But
in all actuality, you think it's Fluke?
I think it is Fluke. Yeah.
Okay. I'll stick with Legoat James just because I earlier in the podcast I stated that you have to kind of take away those losses a little bit. You kind of got to look the glass half full. So I'll take Legoat James. You guys are more than welcome to both take
Games 3
Fluke.
and 4 were so good from him, but games 1 and 2 were so good from Hermie. So it's really tough.
Yeah.
Now, because this was the only reverse sweep, I'm gonna add on an extra question. Who's your MVP if Essentially Gaming had won?
Hermie.
Hermie?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I don't think that's close. The Scion and the Kennen were so good from him.
Oh man, his Kennen ults were beautiful.
Yeah. Ooh. It was really good. But yeah, if they won Game 3, the MVP would be Hermie. If they won Game 4, it'd probably still be Hermie. If they won Game 5, maybe it wouldn't, but it'd probably still be.
Oh, it's always Hermie.
All right. Well, Hermes and Atlas both going home. Fuck the Titans. Some Greek mythology jokes for you. All right.
Yep.
So I mean that covers it for the quarter for the round 1 rather. Let's go ahead and shift gears on over to the quarterfinals.
We're going in order?
Yeah. So real quick before we jump into that, I actually have one more question. I actually want to hit up some of our questions rather from last week, and I want your guys' thoughts on what some of these questions are, just because some of them pertain to last week. What picks have come out? This is from Starling. Like I said, I want to ask the ones that pertain to last week now. So from Starling, he asked us what picks have come out in the Season 10 games that we've seen so far that have been surprising, either by being picked or just that have been ignored. What's your guys' picks for those?
Why
I want
did
two
we
each.
not? Why didn't we see Senna?
Same question.
Wasn't she
Where?
banned?
No.
No, she wasn't banned.
She wasn't
from
picked
the-
or banned?
She was only banned
Jesus.
before playoffs.
She was picked, I think, in one of the games.
No.
One game in it.
I meant like on the ban phase. I didn't mean like banned from being played.
Oh no, she was not banned like almost any
she
game.
She was picked by Famous in Game 3, and that's it. But by that point, it had already been established that they were getting hard stomped in bot lane, and they couldn't do anything. Also, they picked at support. We should have seen Senna, man. People clearly did not see how
Didn't
good
prepare
Senna
for that.
is. Yeah, no one.
And not to
No
mention,
one
it would have got through every
prepared for
ban.
Senna.
It would have got through every
Yeah.
ban phase unless
No
you
one
played
banned
it
it.
well.
Oh my god, that was crazy.
That
For
is
me,
surprising.
I did want to talk about the Warwick pick we saw come out. Interesting pick. It really worked.
I think that's why Starling asked the
What was
question.
so surprising to me? Yeah, I understand that. What was so surprising to me was the survivability you get with that Conquer.
I will say that from playing a lot of solo queue since my return from my honeymoon, it seems like Warwick's pick or ban every game.
I haven't seen it much in my solo queue games, but I don't
Oh,
play as much as Jacob.
I've played like 25, 30 solo queue games since I got back from my honeymoon. So you got to think 30 games in a week. And I've seen Warwick in probably, I'd say like 75% of them.
You know who I have seen? Senna.
Yeah, Senna's another
Yeah.
big one.
Senna, oh man, she should have been in every single
Play
one of
Senna.
these games.
This is the new Kale. Play Senna.
Here's one that I think is surprising for specifically one series, and it's well, I guess it's two. It's Asian Invasion and Akuma Blades.
Uh-huh.
We saw Nocturne 100% pick ban in the other two series from Zephyr and from Dawn Revenant. Their wins.
Yeah, but I mean, you really can't count Dawn Revenant. Let's be honest.
I mean, they were playing it before, but then Zephyr was like, "Oh, okay, Nocturne's good. We're gonna play it top lane," and then it was banned the other two games.
Yep.
If that pick is so good, and I think it is, in both jungle and in top lane, because of the.
It's a great
Oh, God, you're about to become like Vedius and put a mid too. Jesus.
I don't think it's that good.
I mean,
it's really
it
good
is
top
played
and it's
mid
really good.
a lot, actually.
It's actually a
I
good
think
counter
it's
to Nocturne. Nocturne's a good counter to Aurelia and a good counter to Jax and a good counter to
Rise.
Rise as well as
Really
Galio
good
as
counter
well.
Rise.
And not to mention, it doesn't matter because he can just push out lane and go wherever he wants anyway.
Yeah. The I always forget the name of this. The Sanguine Blade is so crazy on that champion.
And it got patched, but it's still good.
Yeah, it's still good on him. He's probably one of the best champions to use it. And it was 100% pick ban in two series, and it didn't show up at all in the other two. I'm pretty sure the teams that have 100% are the ones that are right, and it should have shown up in the other two series.
Probably.
Okay. So
Maybe
you
we'll
think
see that
the
coming
most
into the
shocking
future?
thing is Nocturne not being picked? Or
Yeah, those are my two. Senna
Nocturne.
and Nocturne.
Senna, Nocturne. Mine wouldn't be the Warwick just because I've been seeing Warwick being picked. Mine would probably be more champs that, I guess, yeah, I'd probably agree. There's certain champs that I think aren't being picked. I agree with the Senna one, absolutely. I'm trying to think of the other one. It's not something like a Mumu, I promise. Alex, I'll let you go first.
What are you
While I
talking
try to
about?
figure that out.
What?
You said Senna and Warwick, right?
You're on Senna
Yeah.
Warwick?
Oh, yeah. Senna Warwick.
You took my Senna one. You got to do
No,
another one.
No. Well, we really agreed on the Senna.
Yeah,
And then
all
I
okay,
three of
yeah.
us agree on the Senna.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Uh,
I can't think of the next one. I can't remember who it was. It was on the tip of my tongue.
I'm I'm surprised Heimerdinger's not still being played like in a
That's
massive
true.
amount. So that's
Heimerdinger's so
another one
good.
for me. Yeah, he's so good, and we're not seeing a single person use him.
I just think
Except
a lot
for,
of these.
except for Tron, that guy loves that.
I think a
champion.
lot of marksmen just are still very much like, I want to play marksman. I think marksmen are best.
There are good ADs. Like Zaya's still
Oh,
crazy.
they're still good.
Caitlyn is now ridiculous with
and
Stormrazor.
and Heimerdinger shits on all of them.
I don't think he beats Caitlyn, but he beats the others. Yeah,
Depending on it's actually support matchup.
that's true. That's true.
I guess my
Caitlyn-
second
Caitlyn's
pick would
pretty
probably be Xin Zhao.
You're surprised you're not seeing him?
Yeah, I mean Xin Zhao.
I think he'd lose to Warwick.
Yeah,
I think he'd
have a
lose to
pretty hard
Warwick
time.
too, but I think you hit Warwick with the Bam Bat, and then I think Xin Zhao has an open field. He's got crazy healing. He's got good engage. He's got good disengage. I still think Xin Zhao's a good pick.
I'm not surprised that they're not picking him. I think he's good, but he's a bit niche.
He's underwhelming.
I think he's strong, and I would have rather seen Atlas pull that out than like the Rek'Sai that was underwhelming from him, and the Jarvan that also he didn't look great on. I think he probably would have been pretty good at Xin Zhao.
Gotcha.
But other than that, I think there are better junglers. Well, the Nocturne and the Warwick come to mind. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people that are really high on Zach, and I just don't see it. I think Zach sucks.
But Zach was high last season, or towards the end of last season as well. So
I think they were wrong then too.
No, I know. All right. All right. Well, that covers that question. Let's move on to Go Next Seawolf's question. What out of the first round of playoffs, which result had the most surprising result?
I think
not performance-wise. I just mean like the result of the series as a whole.
Yeah, the numbers at the end. I think you have to take the reverse sweep.
Yeah, that's definitely my go.
So you guys didn't have
Because we all
winning.
We all
series?
assumed.
Or
We
you
all
guys-
assumed Kuma was gonna 3-0.
Yeah.
Oh, when I think
predicted,
result, I mean like who won, who lost. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, I predicted the correct winner for each one.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but so just yours would definitely be the last one then, just because of.
I'm of the result of it. No, I'm not surprised. Of how we got there, yes, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. I agree with that. There wasn't really a super surprising result for me.
Yeah.
The only
That's
one
why I picked that one.
the only one I could make an argument for would have been surprising. Would have been the second seed beating the third seed, and essentially, and Asian Invasion taking
beating
Alarian Gaming Black. But I mean, even that wasn't overly surprising to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably say how we got there for the final result for Game 4. All right, up next is Asian Invasion's Klexo. What team underperformed the most from the first round that is now in quarters, and will they be able to bounce back?
Well, we
know
touched
Jacob.
on we touched on the team. We touched on the team that underperformed the most that is not in quarters, and that's Alarian.
Yep.
That is in quarters.
So I think personally it's Akuma Blades. From what our expectations were for that team, they completely underperformed. They were not ready, and we are hoping to see them bounce back. Like I said, we've had that week off for them to get that extra practice in. Hopefully they utilize their time well, and we're gonna see them.
Yeah, I hope they didn't enjoy
show
Thanksgiving.
off
I hope they were practicing.
Yeah, I think Akuma Blades.
You didn't even get to
is
eat, man.
the
They did
answer
a
here.
strict plan.
We put them on the Korean
What
regimen.
about you, Jacob? What about you? Which one of these teams?
So I mean, there's a lot of options, No, in all seriousness, for me it would either be Akuma Blade or Zephyr, and I think you already hit the nail on the head for Akuma Blade, so I'll take Zephyr. I think Zephyr looked like a really shitty shadow of their former selves, and I think that either they bounce back or they're not making it into semifinals. Plain and simple.
I think if
the
this
second
team,
toughest opponent, in my opinion.
I think if these 5 players were they like changed names, then you wouldn't feel the same way. I think.
No, you're absolutely right. If they were under a different banner as a team,
Yeah.
I would be like, all right, cool. It's just a different team that's with less organizational structure that doesn't look as good. But the fact that it's supposedly a team with the same, because it's supposedly the same team with the same organizational structure behind them, that organizational structure is what's bothering me the most about this team, because it was not prevalent in that series. So
You hear that, Starling? This is on you.
I think that Zephyr looked massively underperforming, and I think that as for will they be able to bounce back in quarters, it plays into the next question I was going to ask. But I'll go ahead and answer it now. I think that this patch hurt Zephyr the most. Because, we talked about how Zephyr doesn't come out of the gate swinging on all cylinders. They kind of slowly take over control by just being better players. And then once they have that lead, they can run with it. But I think that they are definitely not a first 5 minutes of the game team. And I think that this patch is so heavily focused on snowballing early advantages. And I don't think that they're capable of getting advantages right now on this patch. I think that them losing their previous bot lane and having to replace it with this one, while I do like both players that they've replaced them with, I think it was the worst possible time they could have lost them. I think Dragon Control is so fucking prevalent now, and I think that we really saw how prevalent it was in the other series, and I think if they play the way they played again, or even close to how they played against Famous, I don't think they bounce back, and I think they're knocked out at 3-0, honestly.
I think this might end up being a little bit of a talking in circles situation, where I don't think that they looked that bad, as bad as you're saying. And I was joking about Starling, by the way. I think that he and Zephyr have done a good job of incorporating the bot lane into their team and making it about them and not just, here, you guys are the new Vark and Marascudo. You are supposed to do exactly what they did. Like I think that's a little bit unreasonable. And I think that they've managed pretty well. Like we were talking about, the improvements between regular season and the playoffs were definitely felt. It definitely was measurable how big it was. And they held their own in that game. Granted, it was against what I believe to be the worst performing team in what will probably be the whole tournament. I don't think any of the first seeds are going to perform that bad.
Oh, you mean strictly playoffs, not the whole tournament?
No. Not all 8 teams from each division. No. Of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a completely different ballpark.
Oh man,
that could be in our final episode of the season.
I'll leave that topic with I'll leave the famous topic rather with you shouldn't have picked Oh My Dear, guys. That just was not a good choice. But moving past that team, I would say that Zephyr was affected more by the roster than the patch, and I think that Akuma Blades was the worst performed, or the worst prepared for the patch.
Well, so, because it's talking about the playstyles and why it was affected.
So
I don't think Akuma.
Let's ask the question first, so everyone knows which question we're addressing, because we both kind of touched on it, but we haven't asked the question specifically.
Oh yeah, you bounced questions.
I forgot.
Yeah, I bounced questions.
So Turtle.
So Turtle asked, taking into account the play styles you've seen from each team, what teams have benefited and what teams have been hurt the most by the changes in Season 10? That was the question that I was referring to. Then Smax answered, kind of gave his thoughts about Akuma Blades and stuff like that. And then Alex, go right ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So, yeah, sorry. So when we talk about Akuma, yes, they underperformed on the patch, but I don't think their play style was hurt by the patch. I think they just didn't understand the patch. I think their play style was still fine, because they play a lot around their bot lane with a lot of teleport pressure, with a lot of, assistance. So I don't think that's the wrong idea. But when you look at a team like Sicko Sands, who had a sub bot and don't play around their bot lane much, that's a team that I feel like really was hurt by the patch. That's true. They didn't really get the ball rolling on that. Mm-hmm. So yes, I think Akuma Blades wasn't prepared for the patch, but I don't think that was the problem for them.
That's true. I think even if Gankbot Police was in, it would have been a similar situation.
Because they don't usually play around the bot. Yep.
No, I agree. I'm gonna flip flop over to Sicko, but for the team that benefited the most, I think you have to say Dawn Revenant. I think that their jungler fits right in to how the meta works.
So you're only talking about the 8 teams we saw play, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we could talk about the other.
I was thinking all fucking 12 teams. Like, who we thought benefited the most out of all 12 teams.
I was
now,
just talking playoffs.
I will say this. If you asked me this question prior to watching the games this week, or this last week, rather, I would have said the team that's going to benefit the most from this is going to either be Recon 5 or Akuma Blades. Akuma Blades did not look like Akuma Blades. I've already talked about this. They did not look anywhere near as dominant as they normally do. And I think a lot of it had to do with the picks of the patch, not so much the patch itself. But I do think that they have been hurt by the meta change that is the patch. But I would have thought that they would have benefited highly from this. But in turn, it's actually hurt them quite significantly. So I would think Recon 5's benefited the most.
It's kind of weird because once Akuma Blades switched to Comfort, they fit right into the patch. They looked like way better in their series. So they tried new things.
Way better is subjective, I guess.
Oh, I mean, compared to what they were doing.
Compared to game 1 and 2, yes, they looked way better, but way better in terms of like old Akuma Blades, like regular season versus this. No, they still look shadowy.
But yeah, I think you've got a good read on it there because they definitely, when they were back on Comfort, they looked better.
Yeah.
And they looked like they fit into the patch. If we're incorporating all 12 teams, I think Recon 5 is a good choice for what team benefits the most. I think it's Team Fish Taco though.
I agree with that because Team Fish Taco is such a bot lane focused team.
Yeah.
And
they see base ties on an island.
Yeah, I mean this meta is literally you need to control bot lane, get dragons, get turret, and then rotate top, get the first Rift Herald, break some shit with it, then get Rift Herald again, and then break shit again. Like that's literally the meta.
I wouldn't say TFT is the most bot lane focused because the support usually roams to mid to look for plays and roams top. So I wouldn't say it's bot lane focused, but they definitely have a strong bot lane that
that's a mystique
deal with
on my
pressure.
Part. Yeah, they've got a good bot lane at controlling the map, and I think that this meta is all about controlling the map through the bot lane. And I think having a support that can roam as much as Furious Doctor does roam, I think is perfect for this patch, and I think that they're really going to benefit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's either going to be Recon 5 or I think it's going to be Team Fish Taco, and I can't wait to see.
Yeah.
All right, so that's I mean, I guess we can answer kind of like the final question that we have. So this will be our entire question segment, I guess, because all the questions were based on last week's. None were really tailored towards this week's. So Rat Race asked, who do you expect to step up in playoffs, and who do you expect to falter relative to their perceived strengths? So out of our top 20 lists, get those lists back in your mind, which of those players on that top 20 list do you expect to step up and compete for the best player of the split, and who do you expect to falter?
Do they mean players, or do they mean teams?
No, they mean players.
Well, it doesn't specify.
Yeah,
I
would assume players.
We can do both.
Yeah, we could. I mean, I think players is, well, I don't know. We could do both. We could do either.
Okay, well, we've already seen who's faltered, so now it's about who do we think's going to step up. If we're going to do we can do teams first, and that'll kind of be like the basis for it. We've kind of all talked about who we thought has faltered based on who won and how they looked winning. Mm-hmm. So I guess for teams that I think are going to step up, I mean, I already hit the nail on the head for it. I think Recon 5 is a big one. I think Team Fish Taco is a big one. And, those are the two teams I've kind of got my eyes on.
Well, I think the second part of the question makes it more about, like...
relative to their strength, so we know they're strong teams.
Like a dark horse kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if you want to look at it from that, like...
Well, I think like Dawn Revenant is one of those we expect them to step up because of how well.
I mean, these are all teams that are in quarterfinals of playoffs. They're all kind of where I expect them to be. There's no team that I can really is like, this is a dark horse. It's not like if fucking. I mean, it's not like. I'm trying to like.
So let's just talk about players.
Uni Panthers Gold snuck into playoffs, and I'm expecting them to now win the finals. Like, that's, I'm not saying it like that. Like, there's no one in this that is a dark horse to me.
Let's just talk about players then.
Okay, so
Yeah, we can do that.
Let's just talk about players. That's fine.
The issue is the relative to their perceived strengths for me. There's no, again, it's the exact same thing I just said with teams. There's no players that I'm like, how the fuck did you get here? Like, I expect you to step this shit up. Like, there's no one like that for me. So, I mean, for me, it's hard to say relative to their perceived strengths. Who do I think is going to perform extremely well is a completely different story.
I am going to cheat a little bit and go back to what I said before about how I think Double B on Dawn Revenant looked really good in his series. He was against a sub player, but I would expect him to continue to look very good on Dawn Revenant, and I would expect him to be a secondary carry to Orakra in the series coming forward. And this is a player that I didn't even really consider to put on my top 20 players list, but the way that he played with Paralysis in their series, I don't know what he prefers. He did change his name, but they look really good, and I think that they're going to show up in their series against SBK. So that'd be my answer, I guess.
Gotcha. What about you, Alex?
I would say I talked kind of about Nutty. I think he's one of those people we're watching and saying we really want to see him step up more, and we think he's already. I think he's already done a good job, but I want to see him do more and really show that this is a bot lane that is worth contending against. You know, and really be that threat that they used to be, and show that this is still Zephyr. So for me, that I want to see Zephyr get back to that second seed, third seed team that we know they are, and Nutty is a big part of that.
So, for me, again, the issue is the relative strength part of the question.
Well, just ignore that then.
For me, the player I want to see step up, and this is why I said it, the relative to perceived strength is the issue. It's not I want them to do better. The person that I'm looking for to show up and continue to execute at the level that we know they're capable of has got to be Furious Doctor. I think that Team Fish Taco rides and dies on his shoulders, and I think that there was a reason that I had him as one of my top 5 players easily, and yeah, I expect him to live up to that. And I think if he doesn't live up to that, then I think that he would be in contention for the Dade Award of this league.
You know what's really interesting about that? You guys just picked 2 supports that are about to play against each other.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's
a good... going to be wrong.
I mean, I think that's a perfect transition.
To Nutty up or nut up.
I think this is a perfect transition into our quarterfinals matchups. So, we're going to go ahead and start with that exact matchup. Team Fish Taco versus Zephyr. I have been extremely critical of Zephyr's performance in round 1 of playoffs. That being said, I think I'm excited for this series. I think if Zephyr is able to go back to the way they were and really step up and play to the level we know they're capable of, I think this is a fantastic series. However, I do think that the bot lane for Zephyr is outclassed pretty heavily. I have this series going 3-1 over to the side of Team Fish Taco.
I agree. I have the same scoreline too, 3-1 TFT. I mean Zephyr, they were the only team to get a sweep. I usually say clean sweep, but it wasn't clean.
No.
So I think that I mentioned this in the PRL Discord about how Nutty is now on a quest to avenge new meta and clean sweep all of Mind Division. He already did the famous, and then he's gonna do it to Team Fish Taco, and then he's gonna do it to Dawn Revenant too.
I don't think the chances of that are pretty high.
It's very unlikely.
Story, though.
The Nutty lore.
Nutty
it could happen. Yeah. It could happen. It's not gonna happen though. Team Fish Taco is still looking like a front runner for the the whole tournament. What I initially had as a problem that I thought might crop up for this team was I didn't think that they were going to be able to adapt to the meta all that well, and I think that they are a little cookie cutter for a best of 5 situation. But the meta adapted to them, so
Yeah.
I think they definitely are pretty happy with how the meta's going right now, and I think that they're in a really good spot to maybe take the whole thing. And that's really exciting because I did not have them in my top 4 when we talked about it a few episodes ago, and I had Zephyr at number 2, and I think that Team Fish Taco look really, really good on paper coming in. We haven't seen them on the patch yet, though, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this patch is dictated almost solely by the jungler and the support right now, especially if they have good synergy. And I think that there is not a better jungle support duo in the game right now than Team Fish Taco's jungle and support.
I agree.
And I think that they're going to completely take over the entire series. I predict 3-1, but I mean, if someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm from the future, and this is what happened, and like this is the score," and it was 3-0, I wouldn't be so surprised, especially given Zephyr's performance last week, and the way that the meta seems to have been tailored for Team Fish Taco. Alex,
I'm right there with you, gentlemen. 3-1.
3-1.
And this is obviously TFT. We know TFT to be a strong team. We know they play the bot lane game. We know they play the support game. We know Zephyr's still growing as a team right now, and figuring
worst
out
time
that.
to be growing,
So
unfortunately.
for me to take all my faith and to say, hey, this team has a new bot lane. They're looking kind of shaky. Will they? I don't want to put all my faith into one thing, but I can say that I think Zephyr shows a very good understanding of the patch, and that's why maybe it's gonna be closer than we even think.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Never mind. I'm not gonna make that claim. I'll tell you when I get to the. Never mind.
No,
Forget it.
All right. I mean,
Smax.
is there anything we
No,
want
no,
to?
no. It'll make sense later. Forget.
Is there anything we want to add before we move on to the next one?
Nope.
Zephyr could win.
Zephyr could win.
I mean,
A lot of teams could
The
win.
nutty lore.
anything,
The nutty
the
my
nutty
division
lore.
lore.
anything is possible on any given day. I agree with that.
As long as Zephyr
Um,
bans Pike every time and doesn't let Nutty have it, we're good.
But yeah, no. I mean, anything's possible for sure. But I think the general consensus on this desk will prove to be accurate. I think it's going to be 3-1 or 3-0 for the side of Team Fish Taco. All right.
Yeah, I
that
think
being
Team Fish
said,
Taco's definitely gonna take
yeah,
it.
absolutely. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one then. It was a quick and easy one.
The spice.
Yeah, up next, we have SPK Embers taking on Dawn Revenant. This is, so we have a team that has kind of looked really explosive these last couple of weeks. And we have a team who we have said is the most controlled team in the league, in SPK Embers. What's our thoughts going into this one?
I think things are about to get pretty spicy on this podcast.
Do you want to go first?
Okay.
Or do you want me to go first?
So clearly, I think I'm out of the loop on this one. I think these two gentlemen have a very different prediction from mine.
I'm gonna go first, Max, if you do not
Okay.
mind.
Go first. Go first.
So, SBK, they're kind of like the question mark right now. We have not really seen much from them. We have not really heard much from them. We don't know what they're practicing. We don't know what they're working on. But we have seen Dawn Revenant shoot out and play amazing. Now, I will say that SBK benefits on patch very well with their bot lane being one of the strongest bot lanes that we predict in the PRL in Phoenix Rising. So, for that reason, I think it's going to go 3-2 Dawn Revenant.
Okay. Smax, I'll let you go next, and then I'll tackle my thoughts.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
Smack's about to blow up the whole world.
Unless he's about to
Body-
like drop 3-0 Dawn Revenant, like
You just let the boy talk.
3-0 Dawn Revenant.
God damn it.
I think that Dawn Revenant is the most consistent team of the ones that won in round one. I've already said that.
Mhm.
I think that Body Division has been fully exposed by Akuma Blades and by Asian Invasion,
Mhm.
who I think are good teams. Akuma Blades have looked on the downtrend, but I still think that they looked like they won the series because they did. That's the best way I can put it. But Dawn Revenant looks super good, and I think that the bye division as a whole is going to go 0-3 in playoffs, and I don't think it's going to be close. I think the trend is going to continue, and I think that we're going to look back on this tournament and remember that Essentia Storm were the best performing body division team.
In playoffs.
I think that's going to happen in playoffs, yeah.
Um,
And as a whole, because they're,
Okay. So I disagree with both of you. I
Never saw that one coming.
I have confidence that the SPK org is going to take this one and kind of run home with it. I'm predicting 3-1 for SPK. I think Alex hit the nail on the head. I think SPK has a really good bot lane, which we've already spoken to, that the meta is kind of tailored towards good bot lanes. I have confidence in SPK's jungler to be able to perform to a certain level, and I think that he will continue to do so throughout this playoffs. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a team that I'm saying I think is going to win the whole thing, because I don't think SPK Embers wins the whole thing. But I do believe that they take down Dawn Revenant. While Dawn Revenant, yes, was the most consistent looking team out of 8 teams in playoff round 1.
unless you count Famous, who are consistently bad.
Yeah, or Alarion Gaming, who is consistently bad, or Zephyr, who is consistently a shadow of themselves. Or you get my point, though. You were the best performing consistent team out of a group of people that were not very good, consistent looking teams. So that's a very low bar to clear in my mind. So I think that everyone has drank the Kool-Aid. And thinks that Dawn Revenant is the next second coming, but I got to give this to SPK Embers.
So here's a little bit of why I don't think SPK Embers is going to show up. Because I clearly don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to take a game. Their bot lane, I think a lot of the reason that they look good is because no one in body division pressured them in lane at all. There was no team in body division that I thought, oh, this bot lane is really good at the laning phase, and they can punish teams that want to scale up like SPK Embers do. And I think that is the reason that they did go undefeated, because they're so good in the late game. But I don't think that their laning is going to be up to snuff against Dawn Revenant, who I just mentioned had a really solid bot laning phase. I think that Double B and Barlane did a really good job of stuffing out Sicko Saiyans in the laning phase. And again, come back to this. It was a sub that they did this to. So, of course, that's going to happen. And in the games that the sub didn't get completely destroyed, he was on Sivir. So, there's that too. But I think that they have shown up in terms of the champions that are good in the bot lane at laning phase. And I think that they have a really good setup to make the bot lane in their favor very consistently, so that Arakra can maneuver around that lane and get the Drakes that are so good on this patch. And then they get the turret plates, and then they can, you've seen games like that. We've all watched Team Fish talk. You know what you do.
I think the fact that SPK Embers has kind of been hidden from the light, though, for the past 2 weeks,
That's true.
gives them a kind of a huge advantage, because they've had time to dissect the draft. They've had time to dissect the meta, and this is a team that we praise as very analytical, very calculating, very controlled, and I think that we're going to see that analytical control style come out, and I think we're going to see it be very dominant. I think that we've seen them, pick apart teams just based off draft alone, and yes, it wasn't a relatively weak division, but I think that doesn't, you can't take away entirely from SPK Embers what they did accomplish in the regular season. And I think that SPK Embers is going to show out or come out, and I think that they're going to show up, and I think that they're going to remind us what a number 1 seed looks like, regardless of how the rest of the division looks like.
All right. One of us is going to be very wrong.
Or 2 of you.
Well, he thinks it's close. I guess it could be multiple people, because it could just be not close at all.
Yeah, I mean, this is very much a series. I think this is the closest of the 4 series. I will say that.
I don't think it is.
I think there's only one other series that I could say is the closest one, and that's what's up next. So
You think that one's the closest?
Depending on if the team that in question bounces back.
Fair enough.
So let's go ahead and tackle that one. I think we've kind of given all our thoughts on this series right here.
Yeah.
So up next is, of course, probably what most people had pegged as the finals. Until week 7 attacked, and it became it became quarterfinals instead. Recon 5 versus Akuma Blades.
And let me just say, they didn't have a choice. Recon 5 had to play Akuma.
Yeah,
there was no other option.
Yeah,
because
Don
one of the
Revenant was
questions, one of the questions we got was, did SPK Embers troll Recon for picking Dawn Revenant? And the answer is yes. They did force Recon 5 to play against the Akuma Blades, which is pretty funny.
yeah. No, I mean,
second pick, don't even get one.
So because of the way that the system breaks down to where teams aren't allowed to play people from their division again because they've already had so much experience against them, it did kind of stunt this game into happening, which is unfortunate. I know all of us kind of, again, had this pegged as a finals possibility. But after the way Akuma Blades played last week, I don't think this would have been finals.
This might be the only guaranteed way that we would have seen these play against each other.
Yeah, based off their performances from week 7 and from last week, Akuma Blades definitely deserves to be taking an early exit stage right. And I think Recon 5 is the exact people to hand it to him. I think Recon 5, again, we said that we think that the meta is kind of tailored towards Akuma Blade, and Recon 5, they were people we thought going into this patch were really going to benefit from it. I think Recon 5 will, and I think Akuma Blades should have based off their playstyle, but not based off their picks. And we saw that. And I think that I think Akuma Blades is going to be in for a pretty rude awakening when they face off against Recon 5, because Recon 5 has looked like the most explosive, dominant team when they've been winning. Which, I mean, they only failed to win one time. So it's been pretty consistent, and I expect to see Recon 5 come out in full force. If Akuma Blades is able to bounce back from their playoff round 1 performance, I think this could be a 5-game series that could go either way. Am I expecting that, though? Absolutely not. I think this is going to be a 3-0 Recon 5.
I think it's 3-0 Recon 5 too. I think that's the most likely scenario. However, I think the second most likely scenario is 3-0 for Akuma Blades.
Jesus. This man does not think anyone's taking a game off of each other.
I think that's the second most likely scenario. I think that these teams are going
to go to bed early. I don't mean to last long.
That is the one I'm casting. A little bit of a spoiler for you guys. I am casting this series. But no, I would love to see 5 games of these teams, but I don't think it's likely. I think whoever shows up on the day is explosive enough and has the potential to just clean sweep the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I think that's just how these two teams play. I don't think we're getting another reverse sweep situation. If Recon 5 goes up 2 games, this is not going to be another reverse sweep for it. There's no chance.
Imagine the storyline, though, if if Akuma Blades beat every single buddy, or every single person by reverse sweeping them. It was all a plan.
Akuma Blades has been poisoning their opponents. It takes 3 games to set in.
They better change their name to Reverse Broom.
Oh my god, that'd be so funny. But like I said, I don't think it's likely that we're getting a close series at all. But I think it could go either way. I just think the most likely way to go clean sweep for Recon 5 because they've just been so explosive if they're in their game style, and they just outskill their opponents in every role, like every time. It's incredible. And I think they're going to do it again.
Heard.
All right.
Alex?
And for this one, 3-0, Recon 5.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of in the same boat on this one.
So for Recon 5, it's just they don't play a game without it being a blowout usually. I mean, they're usually pretty far ahead. And I think that has to do a lot with their jungler. He has really good early game presence of when to gank, where he needs to be on the map, where he needs to set up camp. And I think this team has the most technical players. I think they play the best, and that's why we see them dominate laning phase. That's why it's hard to gank them. They make great decisions. They make micro decisions that other teams aren't making. And even though I don't think they have the best bot lane in the Phoenix Rising League, I don't think that's going to detriment them because of how much skill all these players have as individuals. But on the side of Akuma, we haven't seen them play that old style we've seen them play.
Yeah.
Hopefully they jump into comfort so we can get Smax to have to sit on casting a little longer. Because I'd love to see these teams just bash. I want this finals before finals game.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
So I'm hoping that Akuma kind of fixes what they have issues with. But right now, as it sees, I can't say that Akuma takes a game off of Recon like this.
Yep, I agree. I think unless they have a drastic bounce back, I think that this is a pretty clear-cut Recon 5 victory. So, all right. Up next is, of course, the last but not least series. We're, of course, talking about Asian Invasion versus Go Next Gaming. So, I have already voiced to the wonderful two people sitting next to me what my thoughts are on this series. So I will let them go first, and then I will kind of broadcast my thoughts to the public.
All right. I went before you the last two times, so you go first, Alex.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
So, this is actually the toughest one for me because I think these teams have like relatively similar strength.
Uh-huh.
I gotta take it 3-2 Asian.
Wow.
Ooh.
All right. Someone's been drinking the Kool-Aid.
Asian Invasion!
Or sorry, been eating the rice bowl.
They've been picking up steam. I think they've been putting in a lot of work. I think what they're doing is working. I think when they're not trolling, they're doing a great job. And I just think they have really strong players that have grown throughout the league. And I think that's why they are where they are. They fought for this the whole time, and they're still fighting. And I think they can fight enough to take it over Go Next Gaming.
Yeah, I think Asian Invasion is going to win too.
Oh my god.
I think it's going to be 3-1. I think it's 3-1 Asian Invasion. I very similarly to Sloth here think that they have grown a lot as a team, and I think that they win in a similar situation to Asian Invasion or to Go Next. Asian Invasion wins like Asian Invasion win.
I'm getting really confused now.
Yeah, I am too. It's okay. I promised to Go Next that I would not predict against them for the rest of the regular season, and we're not in the regular season anymore. So I can finally predict against them.
Loopholes.
I can finally predict against them again. It's not even about that though. I think that Asian Invasion has had a lot of practice on the patch, and they have shown that they have by dominating Illyrian Gaming Black. And I think they're going to do a similar thing to Go Next. And just like in the last split of Phoenix Rising, I think that this is going to be a team that isn't in first seed that is likely to win the whole thing. I think the Asian Invasion are really, really strong, and I think that they can take this one, no questions asked, against Go Next, the defending champions.
All right.
I have a lot of confidence in Asian Invasion.
I'm gonna go ahead and crack this this show down.
The wise words of Jacob.
I'm tired of all these ninjas jumping around, being all Asian. I think Go Next Gaming is gonna kind of smack Asian Invasion back down to reality. I don't expect to see the Asian Invasion on the Rift. I think it's gonna be pretty cut and dry. I think it's gonna be 3-1 for Go Next Gaming. I think Go Next Gaming. While I think Asian Invasion has definitely grown, and don't get me wrong, I would love to see the upset, but it would be just that. It would be an upset if Asian Invasion took down Go Next Gaming. This is a 3rd seed versus a first seed, and I think that, yes, Asian Invasion has grown throughout the split. Go Next Gaming has been competing against some of the best competition in the league in Akuma Blades. And yes, I know I've kind of roasted Akuma Blades for their performance, but I'm talking about regular season though. Regular season Akuma Blades, they were competing against, and they got that win. So I don't think it's just Asian Invasion that's grown. I think Go Next Gaming has grown as well. This is also a team that has, I think, a lot of people forget that this is the last season champions. Sometimes.
I just mentioned it.
No, I know, but I'm saying like they are the last season champions though.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very hard to bet against the team who is the returning champions. Now, I've obviously voted against both these teams quite heavily throughout the past. I mean, you can go back and watch the past episodes of the podcast. I almost never pick either one of these teams to win. So I'm.
Must have been really hard for you.
Yeah, no, this one was awful for me. I had to slave away at the pick for this one. But no, in all seriousness, though, I do think this is 3-1 Go Next Gaming. I've heard your points, and while I respect the analytical prowess that you both possess, I am definitely on the other side of this this party.
You just wait for the next podcast. Yeah. You just wait.
Bro, I'm either gonna be right on all of this, or I'm gonna be wrong on all of this.
Either me and Smax will have our heads down, or Jacob will have his heads down.
I'm either gonna be sitting there with a shit-eating grin on my face, or fucking, it's gonna be you two doing it instead.
Welcome back to Smax Talk. It's Jacob's gone.
Jacob had the flu this week. I'm like.
Oh my god!
But no, in all seriousness,
it was pretty easy for me to predict against Invictus Gaming at this year's Worlds.
Oh, it was for me too.
In the same way, I think it's going to be pretty easy for me to predict against Go Next. When they're up against Asian Invasion, though, if they were up against a different team, then maybe not. But I think Asian Invasion is one of my favorites to win the whole thing. Should we talk about
our
favorites to win the whole thing?
Yeah, let's move on from there. Let's actually transition to that, because I think Asian Invasion is about to meet their doom. I think that they I think
you never just say something like
I think they've run into their wall. No, I have a lot of respect for Asian Invasion. Believe it or not, I know
they run into a wall.
I have voted against them time and time again. If you don't like the run into the wall analogy, I guess they're about to flash into a wall. Either way, there's a wall there, and they're not passing it. So, Wile E. Coyote has painted the line into the brick mountain side.
All right.
So,
all right. I don't think you've ever watched that.
We're getting too far into this wall.
Yeah. Well, no, I guess Asian Invasion's painted the line into the mountainside, and then.
Oh my god.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Face first into the wall. We get it.
That's why I said he doesn't watch the show, because he has it backwards.
Roadrunner isn't the one that painted the line.
If you're still listening to this, guys, we're sorry.
No, but in all seriousness, though, I do think that I stand by my predictions. As for so let's transition on who do we think is the favorites for the entire playoffs out of the remaining 8 teams.
Should we pick 1 or 2? Like our finals or just our winner?
I think we should go top 3, because top 3 is going to receive the biggest prize pool. So
we don't know who plays who after these.
Yeah,
these
correct.
So we can't make our pick'ems.
Just anticipation.
See, we need pick'ems for next year.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet.
All right, so I'll go first, I guess, with my first seed. We'll go first I'll go first, then Alex, then Smax for first seeds, and then we'll reverse it for second seeds, and then it'll go Alex, me, and then Smax for third seeds.
Hold on.
I'll coach you through it, Alex. It's okay.
Thanks.
All right, so
Should we go top down or down up? So like third first.
we're gonna go third first.
Ramp it up. Okay.
So while I do have Go Next Gaming taking down Asian Invasion, they are my third seed. Based on the performances that I saw from round 1 of playoffs, I can no longer put Zephyr and Akuma Blades in that first seed spot. So I'm gonna take Go Next Gaming as my third seed.
That's fair.
Alex?
Well, isn't there technically going to be 2 third seed teams?
No, they play each other.
They have a fourth.
Oh,
match
do they play each
or a third
other?
Yeah.
match.
Oh,
Yep.
gotcha. So I don't have to think about that too. I think Asian Invasion takes my third seed spot.
Okay. I think that's
That's-
fair. I think
That's mine too, actually.
Okay, so we're saying whoever wins this series between Go Next and Asian Invasion is the third seed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
think our top 2 are going to be pretty similar too.
Yeah, I don't see it going any other way.
Yeah.
It's just about who you place where.
Yeah.
All right, so
Do
All
I
right,
go
Jake,
first
well,
then?
yeah, no, it's Smax's turn to go second
Okay.
Gotcha.
or first rather. I guess.
My second team is Recon 5. So that's my order.
I think that's respectable. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's respectable.
All right, we're done here.
All right, Alex.
It's different from what it was in our top 4 teams by a lot.
Yeah, I think it's that way just because of the fact that we watched the teams that we had number 1 and somewhere in our top 4 rather. I know we both had Akuma Blade's first seed, and after watching their performance in round 1, I don't think I can justify keeping them in my top 4, unfortunately.
They're bottom
You gotta
half.
remember, it's also who they're playing. You know.
Yeah,
Like,
that also plays a factor as well.
it's
Yes.
a big part too.
True.
So for my second seed, I am going with TFT.
Okay.
Fair enough.
That one is a little more surprising, I guess. Why? All right, so Smax, why do you have Recon 5 as your second? And then I'll let Alex explain why he is TFT second.
I have Recon 5 as my second because I think that they are still well suited for the patch, but I think that the team that I have as first is a little bit more well suited for the patch. And I think that everyone knows which team I have as
All right.
but yeah, I think that Recon 5, while they typically outskill their opponents in every role, I think that the cohesive unit of Team Fish Taco is a little bit better. I mean, I'm just gonna... Team Fish Taco is my number 1.
Yeah, we got
What?
that. Bro, I thought it was SPK Embers.
I think Team Fish Taco as a unit work a little bit better, and they're more refined to the patch as well, where they have their top island and they have their jungle support synergy, and they just work really, really well around the map as a duo. And yeah, I mean, this meta is exactly what they were looking for a patch, and they got exactly. Yeah, it's just perfect.
All right, Alex, why do you have Recon 5, or why do you have Recon 5 first and TFT second? So I'm gonna go ahead and give away your number 1
Wait, what
seed.
about Don? I have TFT second because yes, I think the patch suits them, and we've talked about it. But the patch suits you if you're playing the early game the best, and I think that my top team R5 plays the early game better. And I think they have more technical skill in their lane, so they're not going to be losing lanes like we've seen TFT dominate in, just because a lot of the times they're already winning the laning phase when they're dominating. So
fair.
I think they're going to have a harder time dealing with the mechanics that are coming on the side of R5, and they're not going to be able to bully them with their macro decisions. as well, because I think R5 has a lot more control than most of the teams they played, and I'm really excited to see who's going to be at the end of the finals.
Yeah,
So-
I would love it if that was the finals.
If certain things happen, I believe it's actually still possible for this to be a semifinal matchup between
It is.
R5 and TFT. Is it?
is.
Yeah.
It is possible.
So
possible.
yeah, if SBK Embers wins and decides to pick the winner
The other
of Go
team,
Next
yeah.
versus
winner,
Asian
yeah.
Invasion. Actually, no. Go Next is second seed overall. So Asian Invasion would have to win, and SBK Embers would have to win for that to be a semifinal matchup.
Anyway,
But yeah, hopefully
It's
it's not. Hopefully it's not a semifinal matchup. Obviously we're kind of hoping that that's not the case.
I want to see these two teams play regardless. So
yeah,
mean,
I don't care
I'm
when
fine
they
with it.
play. I don't care when they play. I don't care if they play like in a
I
street
just
match.
the only reason I don't want them to play in semifinals is I want our finals to be hype and not a 3-0. And I think regardless of who these two teams face in finals, I think they're either going to 3-1 or they're going to 3-0.
So we want to do better than Worlds.
Yeah. So that being said, I have Recon 5 second.
and mediocre at best, number one.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate you.
Max. Oh, man.
This is why we need an outro take. Next season, if you guys want it, we're gonna do a friggin' like a fucking outro take where it just shows all the bloopers, and this is gonna be the type of shit we show on there.
We record too much for that.
But in,
Oh my god.
but in all seriousness, so our my second seed is Recon 5. I think Recon 5 is a fantastic team. I think this patch, like Alex said, is absolutely suited for them. They have such early game dominance, and they win throughout just outskilling their opponents because they just seem like such monsters.
Here comes a butt.
And TFT is all that and more.
Yeah.
So I just think that TFT is head and shoulders above Recon 5 in terms of the way that this patch suits them. I think if the patch had gone the way that I anticipated it to go, you'd be hearing me say Recon 5 number 1, TFT number 2. But with the way that the patch has panned out, it's hard to look away from the fact that this meta is dominated by jungle and support duos, really controlling the map and the flow of the game. And I don't think I said it earlier and I'll say it again, I don't think there's a better jungler support duo than the one currently residing on TFT. So.
True. There you go.
All right.
Yep.
So much agreeing, guys.
So
We're
much.
getting we're
We're always like one and then two people agree. One and two people agree.
This is why we need one more person on this podcast.
4 people, and then we have 2 people
And
agreeing,
then we
and the
end
other 2
up
people
splitting
agreeing.
off and doing 2
Yeah.
separate podcasts. I'm done with them. They never agree with me.
Oh my god.
But in all seriousness, though, I think I agree with what I don't remember which one of you said it. You might have both said it. I think after this week, 2 of us or one of us is going to be extremely happy. The other ones are going to be a little upset. It's going to be me that's happy, by the
Honestly,
way.
I'm not upset with anything that could possibly come out. I think we got a lot of great teams, and honestly, if you win, you win. You deserve to be there. So I won't be upset. It's just I don't need Jacob texting me, "Hey, you're wrong," all the time.
I'll be upset. I better be right, guys. You better do me a solid here.
No. I think
Give me all my predictions.
I've also predicted almost every single time against Asian Invasion, and they've won almost every single time. So maybe it's like the Mark Z versus Clutch Gaming effect, where he just has to keep voting against them for them to win. But that being said, I mean, spoiler, my 4th seed is obviously the winner of the Dawn Revenant SPK Embers game, who I have SPK Embers winning. I know you guys both have Dawn Revenant. Yeah, I think we only ever agreed on one matchup, and that was the Recon 5 matchup.
We agreed on TFT Zephyr to the
Of
game
course.
score.
Yeah, of course. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've already kind of answered all the questions we've gotten. We've covered our MVPs from last week and our thoughts on the previous games. Some of us more harsher than others. We've talked about this next week's matches. Is there anything we want to add on before we let it go?
Well, my 4th seed is Go Next. So that's that.
Pew pew pew.
How's that possible?
Because Asian Evasion's 3rd.
Yeah, but another team is gonna make it to semifinals.
Yeah.
I know.
No. It's like I don't mean like 4th seed in terms of strength. I mean like this isn't a strength ranking. This is who you think's gonna finish where in the placements.
I guess I misinterpreted it then.
So your 4th will be Dawn.
I think Go Next is the 4th best team in the. I did it by strength. I guess my 4th would be Dawn Revenant then.
Alex,
But
I
think Go Next is the 4th best team in the final 8, and then everyone else is in the bottom half.
Now keep in mind, guys, if you're watching this, keep in mind that we are ranking this based off of recency. You know, again, you can go back and we would have said Akuma Blades or Zephyr was, 2nd or 3rd or 1st or 2nd, or any combination of those 3 numbers. So I mean, it speaks volume to how badly they performed in the round 1 of playoffs, to the fact that
how big the patch was.
Yeah. So again, this isn't. If these teams bounce back, though, if you see a resurgence from Akuma Blades and Zephyr, do your power rankings change? Or do you think they're just up against too tough of opponents?
It's
like I said
it's
with
hard
the.
To say. It's just hard to say because there's a lot of factors that go into these teams making the turnaround.
You just have to rewind to my prediction on the Recon 5 Akuma series to know my answer to that. If Akuma shows up on the day, then I think they're going to clean sweep. And I still think Recon, even if they clean up, I think Recon takes it.
Yeah.
It'll be a closer game, yes, but I still think Recon takes it.
I agree with
Your
Alex.
webcam's doing the thing again. It's pretty funny.
I agree with Alex. I think no matter what, I think that even if Akuma Blades bounce back, I think this patch is just so freaking suited for Recon 5.
We need one guy to be like,
probably
nobody wins. There we go.
Everybody loses. No, I mean, at this point, we're just kind of rambling to take up time, unfortunately. We're not used to our podcast being this short.
It's true.
So I think we covered everything that was pretty necessary.
Yep. Any final thoughts before we let you guys, or we let the people watching rather go?
Yeah. So you guys may have seen the announcement. We've got the hype week for PRL, the week leading up to the finals. So it begins December 15th. We're gonna have a lot of events planned on that week. We've got the 1v1 tournament. We've got the TFT tournament. The 1v1 is a charity event as well. We've got a show match, and we've got a talk show that I was appointed as the host of, and I don't know what I'm doing for that yet. So hopefully that's good. Open to suggestions if you've got them. I'll be able to find something to do, but I don't know what I'm doing with that yet. But it's called Smax Down, so that should be fun. And then of course we've got the finals as well. So that's gonna be a really, really cool week. You definitely want to stay tuned for that. It'll be like 2 weeks from today, almost. And of course, tune into the quarterfinals matches, which are this week, starting Thursday, where we'll have liftoff at 6:15, and then we will also have the analyst desk for the whole week as well, where you will likely hear our voices, all 3 of us, again. So be sure to tune in to that, because we'll be all over those.
Yeah, you guys get to see our reactions live when I get these predictions right.
You get to see Jacob yell at people live.
You get to see Jacob going like, SPK, do it. You're not supposed to do this. This was not in the script. This was not in the script.
I wrote this, and you better follow it, damn it.
That's going to be pretty fun.
No, it's going to be an absolute blast. I always enjoy working with these 2 gentlemen, and I can't wait to work with them on the analyst desk and either be right or wrong. No matter what, it's always going to be a blast. No, I even said right or wrong. I don't care. It's going to be a blast. I'm just looking forward to it. I always enjoy working with these two nutheads, and yeah, it's going to be a blast. You get to see me actually have to pay attention to every little detail so I can break it down. Versus
you're going to get the top tier analysis.
Yeah, versus my
PlaysFerDays.
broad over perspective.
He told me to take notes for him and send them.
Alright, no, hold on real quick, because this needs to be on this episode of the podcast, otherwise I'm going to continue getting shit for it. I did not organize my top 20 list. I literally... I sent I sent them the list, and I was like, look, I trust you guys, make this for me. It's completely my fault. I take responsibility for it, but it was not in the order I would have had it.
But he did give us the 20 people that were on that list.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all me.
Yeah. He did give us 2 top laners that are
and we did put Klexo at 10 on purpose.
We did, yeah. That was.
Why was Klexo on 10 at purpose?
Because we
also had him at 10.
Without knowing each other's list.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, we ordered it based on how plays would have, how we thought we would have.
And then we got flamed for it anyway.
Oh, I get
flamed. Relatively
I get flamed for everything. Like, I sneeze on the podcast, and everyone's like, "How could you sneeze like that? You've offended my mother." But no, in all seriousness, though, they did a wonderful job organizing the list for me. I unfortunately was on a tight schedule. I left for my honeymoon literally like 30 minutes after I sent that list to them, so I just didn't have time to organize it. So shout out to them for taking care of that for me. You guys got to see who my top 20 players were. Now keep in mind, my top 20 players were based purely on the stat line up until week 7. After week 7 occurred, I was no longer up to date on the stats, obviously, because I wasn't here to watch those games. But so week 7, week 6, and before that was all the stats I had. So all top 20 of my all of my players in my top 20 had pretty significantly good stat lines, and that was kind of the basis for me on how I got my 20 players. So, but that being said, shout out to these guys for taking care of the podcast 2 weeks ago. Smax Talk was quite an interesting show to watch. I enjoyed it greatly.
I worked really hard on that thumbnail.
Did you?
Really hard.
Really hard.
Yeah.
It almost took more than 5 seconds.
Almost.
Almost. He just shook his mouse back and forth real fast. But yeah, no. As always, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe the video. Leave a comment down below if you think one of us is right or one of us is wrong, or whatever the case may be. Show your support for me. You're pointing the wrong way, by the way. You were just pointing at Smax. So.
I can't see his camera's green and pixelated for
different.
me.
Yeah. So actually, no. If you point one way, you're pointing at nothing. The other way, you're pointing at Smax. You can't point at me.
Yeah.
No.
You're in that direction.
I'm extendo reaching over.
I get to cheat. I get to point at both of you at the same time.
Yeah.
In the middle.
Either way, so someone's gonna be right, someone's gonna be wrong. We're happy to make it that way on this show. We look forward to the flame regardless of what our predictions were. But make sure you guys leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe as always. But yeah, that's gonna be doing it for us here on the Plays Podcast episode. We will see you next week, and good luck on the Rift.